I wanted to ask you about the bigger picture here. We've been hearing a hysteria, I think, for profit motives. You and I have talked about this before. That the Russian boogeyman is coming to kidnap our democracy here. I mean, something that hasn't been covered is Rick Scott as governor. He didn't purge as many voters as Brian Kemp in Georgia, but purged a lot of voters in Florida in the build up to his run for senator. You have Brian Kemp. I mean, I've never seen anything like it other than the Supreme Court basically deciding the 2000 election. Brian Kemp purging, I believe the numbers at 350,000 voters in Georgia. And then, while he is running, you have Brenda Snipes in South Florida in your race. Literally, it's not a question of opinion. To the letter of the law, she broke it and nothing has happened to her. Nationally, people would say, who's Brenda Snipes and who cares? But the bottom line is, are you, in your experience and looking at everything that's gone on, because it's happening, I mean, you have stuff that's gone on in Arizona too with fraud. How do we even start talking about 2020? The media is just going to fixate on the horse race and who's up and who's down, but how do you even know you have a fair shot if you're running on a local level or on the national level?
Well, look, you're talking to somebody who's run twice, and it's not like I need this. I'm not a professional politician. Quite the opposite. I've spent my life savings doing this. I'm a tenured law professor. I've got a very good job that I enjoy, that's very satisfying. I don't need this. If people are saying, oh, it's sour grapes, no, it's not. It's a scholar who's been writing for decades about the American political system and the economic system and writing about it as rigged for the elites. And my experience of the last 3 years getting involved in electoral politics only confirms those conclusions. This country has a serious democratic deficit. For a country that loves to talk about, American exceptionalism and what a great democracy we are, in all the international rankings of democracies, we're among the least transparent and have the least integrity of democracies. Money rules. It rules in campaign finance. And, the electronic voting machine, vending machine industry is a powerful industry with a lot of clout. And these elections, they're not transparent and they're not verifiable. So there needs to be reform. And, how do you get there? How do you get reform if the electoral process itself is skewed against you? If civil litigation doesn't bear fruit, like, here I went all out, brought a civil lawsuit against the supervisor, won it. It took me years, took a lot of my own money. Criminal prosecution, the criminal law enforcement agencies could not have been bothered by Snipes's law breakings. And what's left? Nonviolent civil disobedience, I suppose. But that didn't work out well under President Obama with Occupy Wall Street getting swept off the streets without really achieving much except maybe an awakening of consciousness. So this country has some serious problems. And those are political problems. Those are problems related to the type of democracy we have. We haven't even gotten into, income inequality, racism, the criminal justice system, climate change, environmental degradation, all of that, that puts, our quality of life and future generations at risk. But we're not going to solve any of those problems if we don't have a democratic process that allows the people to have some say in how they're governed.
Mm-hmm. And my last question, and I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer here. I mean, there's real consequences here, not just for democracy, but for Broward County and South Florida. Now that the Democratic Party, the establishment wing, is taking control, Nancy Pelosi, reason would think that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is going to be yanked out of witness protection. And, her and Nancy Pelosi and her in leadership, from what I can see, she's not going to be a backbencher anymore. They're going to bring her back to the forefront. And do you see threats now that the establishment Democrats are obviously there's been progressive victories, but bottom line is it looks like Pelosi will be speaker. It looks like, the neoliberal wing is moving back into leadership there. What's at stake here now that it seems Wasserman Schultz will have more power?
Well, Wasserman Schultz is just emblematic of the party. If I had beaten Wasserman Schultz, it wouldn't have changed the power dynamics within the party. It's a party that's corporate owned. You can point to a number of really good notable exceptions out of 435, well, however many Democrats are in the House, 200 something. You can point to some notable exceptions of Democratic members of Congress who are still pretty much out there fighting for the progressive agenda. But the center of gravity, the center of power in that party is certainly with the corporate-dominated, corporate-owned Democrats, and I don't see that changing. I think they needed to crush my campaign because I was running as an independent, and it would have been a big shot in the arm for independent candidates at a time when independent voters make up 46% of the electorate. People are rejecting both these parties. We know they're not working for us. Publicly, they're at each other's throats all the time, and yet behind the scenes, they cover up each other's mess. They wash each other's dirty laundry. The ballot destruction case here is one prime example of it.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, I lied. There's the biggest consequence I see here. Obviously, Debbie Wasserman Schultz isn't running the state, but climate change, I mean, you read some experts that say Florida could be in big trouble as soon as a decade as far as endless flooding, property destruction, and worse. And she's not going up against fracking. She's not going up against oil companies, energy companies. She's, as you've said,
and big agriculture.
Right.
It's a big part of the climate change problem, and not just climate change. It's now become an enormous threat to our water supply here in Florida. It's destroyed a lot of sea life in the past few months. Wasserman Schultz is a corporate-dominated Democrat. She will she'll talk the talk of progressive politics now and then. She'll talk about climate change being a reality. That's how far she's gone. It's a reality. I guess when you have a governor like Scott who says it's not even a reality, calling it reality sounds like you're doing something about it, but you're not. So, what I've been saying is on the Republican side, you've got climate change deniers. On the Democratic side, you've got climate change hypocrisy, where they'll talk about climate change like it's a very real problem, but they don't do anything about it. Wasserman Schultz on the Appropriations Committee continues to vote for hundreds of millions of dollars a year in subsidies for big sugar and even bigger subsidies for big agribusinesses and fossil fuels as well. So it's a bleak picture. I don't know what's in store for not just our country, but the future of our planet, and it just seems like we're living in a time where people have forgotten their common sense of humanity. Money rules. People have the feeling that we're living in a corrupt time. I can't change it, so I might as well just go along to get along. And, if that's everyone's view, it doesn't change anything.
Right. And I promise this is the last one. Have you made any decisions as far as whether you'll file lawsuits, if you're going to be starting a legal fund? We have, 250 people watching now. I'm sure more will be watching after. Yeah. What are your thoughts moving forward?
We've made no decision right now. We're looking at the prospects of seeking a recount, what it would entail.
A recount or a revote?
We're looking at the prospects of both, I should say.
Okay.
Of both, a recount and a revote by bringing a suit to invalidate the elections.
Okay.
And I don't know what I wouldn't venture to guess what we will decide to do, but we're looking at both. I'll say there are folks like Bernie Sanders, who after the 2016 election, he really hasn't spoken out about the kind of election corruption that stopped his campaign. Instead, he has kind of repeated the talking points about Russia, if anything. And, I don't know if it's a third rail that we're not supposed to talk about, but we need to. It's unacceptable to have an election system like we do. Right.
I appreciate you taking the time, Tim. I mean, the comments are very, very overwhelmingly positive, and people are very appreciative that you've stuck to your guns, no pun intended. And I know we'll keep in touch as you make decisions.
Well, I thank you for having me on, and I appreciate your audience and this grassroots movement. And I look forward to staying in touch with you.
All right. Take care, Tim.
Okay, Lauren. Thank you, Jordan. Take care.